One of the topics that is most talked about in early Islamic numismatics are the attribution of mint legends, and no group of mint legends are discussed more than those mint legends of Kirman. This paper will be discussing the attribution of mint legends in Kirman, and I hope to show that we're not just talking about where coins were struck, but we're also going to connect this to the history of that region. Now, this is a general picture of Kirman, located in southeastern Iran. In the past, most discussions of mint legends have centered on the cities and settlements north of the Taurus Mountains. And so you can see here the line of mountains along here. In the modern province of Kirman is generally, this is the border of that province, and it's usually everything north. Historically speaking, the province of Kirman extended down to the Persian Gulf or the Arabian Sea. And so I will be spending quite a bit of time talking about that southern portion of Kirman that is usually neglected in discussions about the geography of mints and minting. In this talk, I will argue in particular that the mints BN and GLM are distinct but have close administrative ties. The two mints most likely belong to Garmsir, the coastal plain of southern Kirman. One or both of them should be identified with the port city of Bandar Hormuz. The attribution of these mints, as general as it is, has important consequences for the attribution and identification of other mint legends in Kirman, as well as the interpretation of Kirman's history. The mint legends that we are discussing are well known. They occur both by themselves and in combination with the provincial name Kirman. So in the upper left, we have the BN on a coin of Al-Hakam bin Abil As from the year 53, and we'll talk about that later. Down in the lower left, we have the same mint legend appended to the provincial name Kirman. So we have Kirman BN. In the upper right, we have GLM, generally pronounced Garm, and then we have in the lower right the legend Garm Kirman. So it is a prefix attached to the provincial name Kirman. The record of mint activity at these two mints is distinct during the 670s or the 50s of the Hijra era. We find that in the early part of the decade, that coins are struck with the name of Ziyad bin Abi Sufyan on them, and then Abdurrahman bin Ziyad, his son. And then the latter part of the decade, we have coins from Al-Hakam bin Abil As. One of the curious things about the mint activity at BN is the large number of anomalous name and date combinations. So, for instance, we have Ziyad for the years 52 and 53, which is pretty much consistent across mints in Kirman. We then have a mint legend of Abdurrahman for 53, 54, but also we have it for 52. That is highly unusual. At nearly all other mints, that name legend is only known for the year 54. In the year 56, we have a Hakam bin Abil As, just as we have at many other mints. We do not have any record of coinage struck at this mint for 57 or 58. However, we do have some anomalous issues for the years 53 and 54, which is unique among all the mints in Kirman. They have examined some of these coins, and if there's an obverse die link between all three issues on three coins that I found, the issues for 53 and 54 show more significant wear patterns than the one for 56. Well, this suggests then that they were struck in 56 or slightly later from old dies that existed from earlier issues struck for Ziyad or Abdurrahman. This raises the possibility that the coins were only struck in 56, unlike at other mints where they were struck in 57 and 58. Garm, on the other hand, is very consistent and very regular. 52 and 53 for Ziyad, 54 for Abdurrahman, and then Al-Hakam bin Abil As, we have 56 to 58. From the late 50s to the early 80s, but we're going to look right now at the early 70s, we noticed a complementary pattern of mint activity at these two mints. So, for instance, at Garm, we have Ubayd Allah bin Ziyad for the year 59, and we have Ubayd Allah bin Ziyad for the year 60 at BN. There's a gap, and then we have 67 at the two mints, but then we have only 69 and 70 attested at Garm. And then when coins are no longer attested at Garm, we have them over at BN for Bandar Hormuz for 71, 72, 74, 75, 76, and 77. Oddly enough, that missing year 73 does appear at Garm. We have an anomalous issue of Atiyah bin al-Aswad that has the date 63. However, based on the orthography of the name legend, it can be dated to somewhere between 70 and 74. And so it quite possibly was struck in 73 with an older reverse die. I've given in the right-hand corner the number of specimens that I am examining. Obviously, a best practice would be to do a die study, but I think that the specimens in many cases, they are significant. There's quite a large number of specimens that we have under examination. So to continue, we have Yazid is attested in 78, but he is not tested at BN. And then we have Abdullah bin Bostam in 82 and Amr bin Laqith in 82 at Garm, and then also 83. Nothing at BN until 83 when we get Amr bin Laqith. So from the late 50s to the early 80s, we have more or less a complementary pattern at these two mints. And this suggests that the mints are distinct, but they are related administratively. Given that these two mints are related, we can now talk about where they would be attributed. And where one is likely attributed, the other is probably located somewhere nearby. Now we have the mint name Garm, which means warm, in the name of the Garm Kirman, which would suggest that it belongs to Garmsir, which is southern Kirman. Garmsir is relatively isolated from the rest of Kirman. I would like to emphasize that while Garm means warm, Garm Kirman is a specific geographical region, of a distinct geographical region. And it is bounded to the north by the mountains that I talked about at the beginning that separate the modern province of Kirman from the modern province of Hormozgan, I believe it's called. In the medieval period, this would have also represented a barrier of sorts. Garm Kirman is linked to the northern districts of Kirman basically by two roads. One road moves from Bandar Hormuz up to Shirajan. The other road goes from Bandar Hormuz to Minab up to Jiruf, and from there up to a road that will ultimately lead to Bam or east-west between Shirajan and Narmashir. Garmsir, which is the place that we're talking about for Garm, has a distinct social and cultural identity. Garmsiri is a dialect, I believe, of Persian. It is distinct from the other dialects that are north of those mountains. To the east, you have the Baluchis, who are speaking a different dialect, and they were organized socially very differently. They were largely nomads, very, very few settlements or towns. Now, we talk about the links of the legend BN to Garmsir. Qatari bin al-Fuja'a's drams are amply attested for 77 Hijra era at BN. I believe there's about 7 specimens that I've identified. His drams are not attested anywhere else in Kirman. He is mentioned by Tabari as controlling and collecting taxes in Garmsir in 77 of the Hijra, but not north of Jiruf. And Muhallab bin Abi Sufra sort of blocks him at Jiruf for about a year until there is a civil conflict among the Harijites, and they break up in about 2 or 3 different groups, and he flees going north. Now, we also have links of both BN and Garm to the mints Giro for GY for Girof, and Noji for Nojiroft. If we look at the record of Musab bin al-Zubair's name legend in Kirman, we find that this name legend never appears at the mints of BN and Garm and GY and Nauji. Those four mints. And G and Noji are both in Garm Seer. Garm is plausibly in Garm Seer. BN, I just gave arguments for it being in Garm Seer. So it appears that that entire district refused to inscribe Musab bin al-Zubair's name on their coins. Musab's name does appear at the following mint sites: Kirman, the mint legend that has been read, Sir John, SLCN, could be HLCN, Khapiz, Narmashir, and a series of mints that Mike's going to talk about. Could be Anan, but there's also Anat. It could be one or more mints. Similarly, we find links of BN and Garm to Giroft and Noji with the name legend of Abdullah bin Bastam and Ahmad bin Lakith. Those are two rare governors that are attested on Kirman's coinage. Abdullah bin Bastam only appears at Garm, which is unusual. You know, where did he come from? Who appointed him? If Garm is in Garm Seer, it's plausible in that if he came by ship, then that would be where he landed. Amr bin Lakith appears at BN, Garm, and Giraf, as well as Narmashir, and we'll talk about that, but nowhere else. It appears in Garm, the year 82, which is a year before it appears anywhere else in Kirman. And Arm Kirman is otherwise absent at Kirman and all these other mint legends. Now, in the case of Narmashir, that is the anomaly. It appears in 83, so it appears at the end of the series. Now we have the coinage of Atiyah bin al-Aswad to consider. The coinage of Atiyah bin al-Aswad is significant because Atiyah could only have arrived in Kirman by sea, and that means he could have only arrived in Garm Seer. And from there, spread out and conquered the rest of Kirman. He was coming from Oman, so you can see where the Arabian Sea is. His first stop would be Bandar Hormuz or Minab. There are very, very few ports along the coast, especially to the east. So there really is no other place that he could have gone. And we find the very earliest coins of Atiyah bin al-Aswad are for the year 70. And they appear at Garm, and they also appear at Kirman, or the mint KLM Hamza Nun. At BN, they are first known at 71, and then they appear at 72. But of course, with Garm and BN, we have complementary mint chronologies. So it would make sense that BN would not strike the name legend of Atiyah bin al-Aswad in the year 70. Other mint legends do not strike Atiyah's name legend until the year 72. All other coins and mints, with the one exception of Narmashir. That exception is restricted to a single coin. It is followed by an issue of Musab bin al-Zubair in the year 72. Musab bin al-Zubair is attested very well in 71, and then a single issue in 72. Atiyah bin al-Aswad is attested by a single issue in 71, and many issues in 72. So it may be that that's just an old reverse die being used. We don't really know. Now, the possible mint sites in Garm Seer are not that many, and this is an area that I have not fully explored. But we have Bandar Hormuz, and we have Minab. There's another site, Valishgird, that was on the road between Minab and Girof, which apparently was a major entrepot. And there may be other sites I have not, fully explored. My point is only to prove that the mint legends BN and GLM, or Bandar Hormuz and Garm Seer, belong in the southern portion of Kirman. This has implications for the attribution of other mint legends and mint sites. If Garm is identified with Garm Seer, then it cannot possibly identify the city of Bam, which some people have argued. Bam is not part of the geographical unit of Garm Seer. It doesn't mean it's not hot there, but that's just where it is. The legend Kirman, or KLM Amzanun, may identify Sirjan, but not Bardashir. And this makes, perfect sense by the geographers. They describe Sirjan as the old capital of this province. Bardashir doesn't become important until about 2 or 3 centuries after the Muslim conquests. More generally, what we see are that most of the mint sites are concentrated across trade routes to India and Khorasan or Sijistan. So we have the roads between Sirjan and Narmashir. Most of the mints are strung across that. And then we have the roads from Sirjan to Bandar Hormuz and Jirov to Bandar Hormuz. So you take those roads, that's where we're finding most of the mint sites are actually located. Northern Kirman seems to be relatively unimportant. There were mints there, for sure, but the main mints that we're talking about don't seem to exist there. The implications for the history of Kirman. What this does, it points out the importance of sea trade with India as an important factor in the activities of the caliphal state and its governors and rebels. So we find that Ziyad bin Abi Sufyan and Abdurrahman bin Ziyad in the early 670s aimed to strengthen their control of southern Kirman. And this may have had to do with a desire to secure a trade route to India. This is supported by the appointment of Al-Hakam bin Abil As as Abdurrahman's successor. Al-Hakam bin Abil As is from the Banu Thaqif in Ta'if. He is one of the generals that led the first Muslim expeditions into the Arabian Sea, and he himself raided the coast of India very, very early in the caliphate of Omar and Uthman. He previously was briefly governor of Ta'if, and then he was a lieutenant governor of Eastern Arabia. He led the first conquest of Ardashir Khora by boat. He traveled across the Persian Gulf. He did not go by land. He is somebody that was well acquainted with maritime travel, and so now he was appointed to Kirman and clearly spent a lot of his time, judging by the activity of mints, aiming to control the southern parts of Kirman. We also find with the Kharijites a connection with the sea trade. We find that the Kharijites were a multicultural group for the most part. They depended on the Persianate Arabs along the coast in Fars as well as Kirman. Atiyah bin al-Aswad, as we said, he came by sea from Oman. He reportedly, after being kicked out of Kirman, went to Sind. The most obvious path for him to get to Sind would have been by sea. Much more could be also said about both these people in that respect. But it seems that a large part of their support in Iran-Shar was with these Persianate Arabs. And in this context, we have this wonderful coin of Atiyah bin al-Aswad struck in the year 70 in Garm Kirman with the name legend with Muhammad is a messenger of the prophet. The translation of that into Pahlavi, which is Muhammad is the lawgiver. And the marginal legend is in the name of God, guardian of authority. Now, I think this is interesting because when you say Muhammad is the lawgiver, this is a model of authority for this ruler, Atiyah bin al-Aswad. And it sets him up as an arbitrator. If he's following in the footsteps of the messenger, he is an arbitrator. And that would have been an important office for any trading community where you might have all sorts of disputes that needed to be resolved by an arbitrator such as the ruler. Thank you very much.